That's where they live. I suppose you wanted to rob the third story. No ladders, no ropes, no weights. How will you get up to the third story? Well, after several days, one of the youngsters came up with a piece of wood. He didn't even know what a wedge was. You see that hunk of wood? I can stick it in the bricks and it gets tight no matter how far the bricks are. See, from one another. And I can climb up the god. He didn't use that language. He used much stronger language. And climb up the building and take whatever I want to take. That's how I do it. Well, how do you give people an IQ test that come from a different environment? How do you know what they sense? Do you think that the formalist who tries to structure the nature of intelligence, the nature of creativity, without being creative, can do it? Well, in order to teach children how to become creative, I make a Martian out of rubber with eyes on tentacles and a pointed rear end. And they look at it and they say, nah. And I say to them, what good are 3 eyes or 4 eyes on tentacles? Eventually, when you look at the back, the front, the side, the top at the same time. And what if the guy had 6 arms? Well, he can shave, read a book, eat a donut, and drink coffee. Instead of, as we're brought up. If you met a Martian, they had an opening on the ear. So, what's that? Notice the attitude? What is that? Well, if we eat anything that's bad for us, it's ejected right away. Not in your system. It goes through your whole system. So you're taught in medical school how wonderful the human body is. How wonderful it is. This isn't true at all. That you're indoctrinated to a set of values that are unreal. And in order for me to get these ideas out there, it's extremely difficult because we need films, we need equipment in order to do that. What the Venus Project has to offer is a way of life without ambiguity, a language that has a much more precise form of communication, to change the relationship between people, where the male and female are not given separate roles, where the female can say, I want to be a biochemist or a physicist, and she goes that way. When you hand a girl a doll, you're placing a set. You're beginning to manipulate the people. Everybody's afraid of controlling human behavior. You're always controlling behavior. When you pick up your little girl and say, don't play with that little Lutheran boy across the way, and you put him down again, or don't talk to that little Catholic girl across the way. Well, you're always indoctrinating children. Who loves you more than anything in the world? The candy store man. No, your mommy and your daddy. See, indoctrination continuously. And then all of us together sing, we are free. Let's go. We are free. So beware. Whenever you hear of freedom and all that sort of thing, watch out. Because a real free society, the closest I've ever come to it, was in Polynesia. I lived in the South Pacific Islands for a while, and the natives gave me bananas and coconuts. All that. They were very generous, and they had no word for work. Would you believe that? They went fishing all day, they played, they had luau's. And they said, Jacques, you know, what you want? And I said, well, I would like an outrigger canoe. And they built one for me. A few days after they brought it to my hut, I heard some rustling outside, and they were all carrying the canoe away. I said, what's going on? Said, you no use. It was a different value system. Now, the men and women walked around nude on the island when I got it, a long time ago. And I never saw a native poke another native, hey, get a load of that chick. None of that. None of that. They looked at the eyes of women when they talked to them. Never, hey, look at that. Never at the legs. The motion picture cameras in all your movie theaters are dollying up and down the hindquarters and all. And you wonder why men are like that. They are not like that. They are made like that by culture. Then the missionaries arrived. And the little girls used to come to church, you know, innocent, listening. And they put the T-shirts on them. And the girls had no idea why they were putting T-shirts on them. What's it for? It's like me covering your nose. You can't go into a room big unless your nose is covered. Well, the girls cut 2 holes in the T-shirts and came to church. So, we're dealing with many different cultures, subcultures, and values. Our culture, if we are to grow and build a civilization worthy of humankind, we have to have a quantum jump in the way we look at our world, people, and ourselves. The Venus Project is the redesign of a culture in which the elements that comprise the culture are different. For example, our cities are round, not because I like round cities. The city is round. The center of the city has a socially integrated computer. This may be a medical center. This might be an engineering center. And if you work in a medical center, you live in beautiful gardens with running streams and waterfalls. And every district is the same distance from the center. There are no cars in the city. You get on a conveyor and dial where you want to go to. There's no crime in the city. Just before the public library in the United States, people said, well, you can't really do that. The people never bring back the books. They'll keep them. They won't return them. Of course, all that was incorrect. I want to build a library where any child can walk in, check out a camera, check out art materials, check out water skis, make things available. People don't steal. No one's going to hit you on the head to take your watch off if it's available. Well, how are you going to pay for this central library that gives children these things for nothing? Well, it cost about $50,000 to keep a kid in jail 1 year. An adult, $75,000 a year. Food, clothing, shelter, dental care. Isn't it easier to do it in a different way? I would love to go to Mexico and say, what's your problem? They say, well, senor, we don't have the modern machinery you have. Give them modern machinery. Build schools for them. And they won't be coming over the border. What makes them come over the border? Hunger, lack of employment. They say, oh, it's the goddamn Mexicans, you know what they're like. Oh, there's nothing like that. Everything is shoved by something else. You are told that a tree falls over. You are told that a sailboat sails. A sailboat cannot sail unless acted upon by a resident force called the wind. A tree does not fall. If it rains and it's asymmetric and the soil becomes loose, gravity does the rest. The tree doesn't fall. Plants do not grow. They require radiant energy, nutrients, water. Stop any of those things and the plant stops. Human beings are not self-operating entities. We are operated by many resident forces. Of course, many of us are not aware of that. It looks like we're perfectly free, making our own decisions. I know I think for myself. I'm sure you do. That's an illusion. Because if you're brought up to believe in the Kennedy rocker, you want one for your home. It'll injure your back, distort your anatomy. But Kennedy had one like that, and I want one like that. When you break the patterns that have been established by existing society, you begin to move people in a new direction. I admit I could get up here and give a very pleasant lecture of how wonderful everything will be in the future. A helicopter in every garage, you know, a house in suburbia, another on the beach, maybe one in Hawaii. This is the future. That is not the future. Those are the illusion generators, and there are lots of them. Gregory once told me that being black and living in the South, Dick Gregory, he said, whenever I was late for work, I couldn't run to the bus because they would wonder what that blackie was up to, running. See? In other words, we project our value system into others. We project characteristics into others. We have to find out what we are really like. Now, there may be a particular thing. Who are you going to find?